Guy Warren, thanks so much for inviting us into your studio.
You're welcome.
And happy 90th birthday.
Thank you. Thanks. I don't know how the hell that happened. It just sort of crept up on me, I think.
What's it like to be creating and still putting out these wonderful, vital visual images at the age of 90?
I don't know if they're creative or vital or whatever, but I'm deeply grateful to be able to do it. I'm grateful to be able to do anything. I mean, I think I'm very lucky being an artist. One of the things about being an artist is that you don't retire. I mean, you just keep on working. You stop earning money maybe, but you keep on working.
Because to retire as an artist would mean putting all of this away and somehow suspending this.
It's an insane idea. I mean, who was it? I think it was John Olsen said to me only a year ago, do people still ask you still working? Of course you are. I mean, some woman in the local greengrocer said to me the other day, "He's still working?" I mean, it's a silly question. Of course you are. What is there to do?
As a young man, you went off to New Guinea on active service during the Second World War. What was that like? What was that experience like both for you as a young man, and how did it in some ways change your future approach as an artist?
Well, oddly enough, I was smiling because it made a tremendous difference. I'm very grateful in a way to have gone because I did a lot of drawing while I was there. I had studied part-time before I went into the army, so by the time I was in the army I could draw reasonably well, very well indeed. In fact, I don't think it was great art, but I could put down what I saw in front of me. I had those skills.
Why were you wanting to do that, if I may ask, while you were over there, when there was obviously so much on your mind?
I can answer that question. I think it's something one just simply does. I drew my mates, used to charge them 10 bob a portrait, drew the Japanese prisoners, drew the landscape, drew the local peoples, and they were great, local peoples. Those were colonial days when you had to pay them, they'd pose for you and you'd pay them with cigarettes or tobacco. I'm a bit embarrassed about it now, but that's what one did. And I had this big black bloke posing for me one day, big black guy. This was in Bougainville, and the Bougainville people are very, very black indeed. And I had nothing to pay him with. I had run out of cigarettes, I had nothing at all. And I found a tin of talcum powder in the tent, which the Comforts Fund had sent up. They thought it would help with skin disease, I think. So I handed him the talcum powder, and he poured it into his hand, and then drew these wonderful big marks all over his big black body. The first thing he thought of doing was to decorate himself with marks. And they had a culture of decorating themselves with tribal marks or with whatever. Anything you gave them, they would put in their hair or they'd decorate themselves with it somehow. Now, given that the landscape was very decorative indeed, I mean, full of texture, full of colour, I think in a way I realised that it was making a connection between people and the landscape, between humanity and the environment. And I don't know that I thought about it all that clearly then, but 10 years later I did. 10 years later I was in London with my wife trying to find something to paint. I'd done a full-time art course, so I had a lot of skill. I went to London like everybody did, and I didn't know what to paint. It's all very well to have skill, but you've got to have something to say. I didn't want to paint the English landscape. It was very beautiful, but it's like a great park. It wasn't my landscape. And I didn't want to paint London. And in desperation, I started to paint my memories of New Guinea, of the peoples who were there and decorated themselves to the point that they became part of the landscape. And at that point, I thought what a great metaphor it is for exactly that, for belonging to the environment. And that, of course, is something that Aboriginal artists have always known. Aboriginal people have always known that, we don't rule the earth, we are part of it, for God's sake, and it's part of us. And then at that particular point, we had a little black and white television set, and I saw a documentary of some bloke who'd been in Mount Hagen in the Highlands, and had done a documentary of the Mount Hagen dances with their wonderful headdresses and body decorations, wonderful stuff. And so I wrote to the BBC and said, I'm a young Australian painter in London painting New Guinea, which probably sounded a bit peculiar to them. And could I buy some of your stills? Because you must have had a still photographer there. And about a week or two later, I got a phone call from some bloke who said he thought he might be able to help me. And his name was David Attenborough. And so he invited me round for drinks, me and my wife round for drinks at his place. And he gave me a lot of photographs. He lent them to me. And I did a lot of work, some of which are here. So I did a lot of paintings from that. Had a show in London. And before the show, I invited him and his wife round to our place and asked him if he wanted to take gave him his photographs back, and if he wanted a painting, take one, which he did. So it was a nice association.
For a while there, every Australian owned a Guy Warren portrait.
I know.
On the $2, $10 and $20 notes, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
How did that come about?
The designer of the notes, a bloke called Gordon Andrews, and the committee who was running it, I think Hal Missingham had something to do with it too, asked me if I would draw the portraits for the notes. I thought it was a fun idea. I thought a fun thing to do. It sort of puts me in history. I don't think it paid a lot. I think it was pretty meagerly paid, but it was a fun thing to do. I did the portraits for each side of the $2, the front of the 10 and the front of the 20. I mean, some of these guys had died 100 years ago, 150 years ago, and there was no photograph extant of them. Might have been drawings of them, so I had to more or less guess what they looked like. But I guess nobody would probably question it too deeply anyway. But I hope they were reasonably good likenesses. I thought it'd be fun to leave to the kids, you know. The old man did the drawings on the dollar notes. Mind you, the dollar notes didn't last very long. They were changed. New designs were created within a very few years.
Money comes, money goes, but art lives on.
Art lives on.
So you didn't always put marks just on paper or on board. You made marks in the sky.
Made marks in the sky too, yeah. I'd been drawing this creature for a long time, and it was about, obviously about a flying creature, and it related to hang gliders and to birds, if you like. It also related to the idea of Icarus, the old Greek myth of Icarus.
And is it art, even though it just literally wafts and drifts away? There's nothing to show for it but your photos?
Well, that's a good question, because I put this actually arrangement here, these photographs in a frame like that, in one of the early Dobell drawing prizes. And I understand, for what I've heard on the grapevine, that there was great controversy as to whether it was a drawing or not.
Dobell would have been proud.
I think Bill Dobell would have been proud, yeah.
Talking about something else that was fleeting and can easily just drift away, fame. And you had fame winning the Archibald. No. Will we have a look at that?
Yeah, by all means.
So here's a study of the Archibald Prize-winning portrait you did.
Yes, it's different from the Archibald. It changed quite a lot.
Winning the Archibald Prize. How does that change you as an artist? How does it change how people perceive you as an artist?
Oh, I don't think artists take all that much notice of it. Look, I don't know if they'd all agree with me. Maybe they do, I don't know. But I think there are higher accolades than that. Look, it's fun to win, and I'm delighted that I've done it. And yes, I suppose it probably gave me a bit more publicity, but I wouldn't see it as the peak of one's artistic life. There are other things that are more important.
What are the important things to you?
Painting a bloody good painting that you're satisfied with yourself, I guess. And that's unlikely to be a portrait, as far as I'm concerned, with me anyway.
So after many years painting, having reached this wonderful landmark, 90 years of age, what's next? What are you going to do?
I want to do. I mean, a lot of painting I still have to do.
I like that. You still have to do. Not want to do, you still have to do.
Oh, no, there are things that I have to do. I think there are things I want to do, I know I want to do, and look, it keeps me off the streets anyway. What else would I do? No, you've got to do them. Same way as writers have to write. I'd be bored out of my mind if I didn't do that.
Guy Warren, may you keep creating and may you never retire.
No, I won't do that.